From the British Empire, our motherland began a new chapter. A journey filled with triumphs, challenges, and transformation. Along that journey, legends were born. Icons emerged. Leaders rose to guide the nation through moments of hope and uncertainty.
In Parliament, we fight each other very strongly, but I hope very politely and with the highest...
First, my apologies. I am 4 months late. As Harin asked me, I gave you a time in March. But health reasons compel me to put it off. And I come today. And you can just see how much the world order has changed from March to today. If I had been in March, we had just seen the beginning of a conflict of Iran. Today you are seeing some outcome. But when Harin asked me about the world order, and I was a bit worried to speak on it. Because unless you are in touch with President Trump daily, you won't know what he will do next day. And he doesn't know what he will do day after. So subject to that, I will like to say a few words. I was born over 7 decades ago, nearly 8 decades. That was the time when the world order was changing. World War II had taken place. European nations, except for UK, had collapsed completely. And it is the Soviet Union, the Americans, the Chinese, the Indian forces, and other like in Africa, Sri Lanka and all, who were able to really defeat, give the manpower and the resources to defeat the fascist forces. So as a result, the colonies were getting independent. I was born just a year after Sri Lanka got independence. So that was the period. First the Asian countries, then the African countries. We went through that. Now that changed in about late 80s, early 90s, when the communist system collapsed and the Cold War that existed between the America and the West and the Soviet Union all disappeared. But now, you are at a stage when you are witnessing the next most important, the shift of economic power away from the West or from the West to the East. That is big. Until the mid 18th century, about 1750s or so, India and China were the most powerful areas in the world. China as a country, India as a continent. Now, all that wealth got transferred out to the West. Part of it went to the, basically for the Industrial Revolution. Now it is coming back. So remember the world you are living in. By 2050, I don't know about me, but all of you should be there. The country with the largest GDP will be China, 50 trillion plus. Then comes India with about 44 trillion, followed by USA. Some in USA say that USA will be second and India will be third. It's immaterial. The gap is so small. So these three countries. Then you have the next big one, that is fourth. What will be the fourth largest nation? France? UK? Canada? Germany? Indonesia with $10 trillion. You have to understand that Bangladesh will have $3 trillion. If they develop faster, they can go up to 4.5. Malaysia, Thailand, all will have $2 trillion. So that's how the world is. I'm not talking Japan will still be there, but the power will go into Asia, to this part of the world. So that is one, that is shifting the world. Secondly, there's also the West Asia, where there's fight going on. Most of the countries are wealthy, they'll become wealthier. towards the end of this century, it will be Africa. That's why China is putting in all its focus on Africa and helping to build them up, because that will be the next country, next continent that will develop fast. So in Asia, Africa. Now there, I think most of the countries, Western countries and China are trying to have two railways across Africa. One starting from Kenya, goes through Uganda and on to Cameroon. The other one will cut through Angola in the Luanda railway and come out near Dar es Salaam. So you can see how the developments are going to take place. So this is one. Secondly, if you look at nuclear power, there's America. The second one is not one of those great economic players, but Russia. And they have enough, the economic strength is sufficient to carry those missiles through. Then China, that is coming up. So you get this double triangle. One is as economic power, China, India, US. As the nuclear powers, US, Russia, China. What they fear is that Russia and China together may have more missiles than US. Then how many others will be? Most of them have carried out their tests. India has. Many of the others have. So it's a changing world order, which is moving away from Europe. And I must say, in fairness to President Trump, he has recognized that. He has called China and they are the global superpowers. He's accepted that. He has not got himself involved in the Ukraine war. Nothing to do, and Russia is not going to invade the rest of Europe. They haven't the capacity to do it. He's also dealing with President Putin. Those are essentials. There is a lot of hurt about how is he dealing with Europe, maybe dealing roughly, but the fact is these countries count more. Then again, the adjustment of their relations with India. So there are a whole lot of, I would say, new ones taking the two triangles. How US gets its relations with China, with India and with Russia. Then how China works out, and similarly how Russia works out. And one of the important things is how the India-China relationship works out. So this is one part. Then within Asia, what do we do? There's also another issue, the status of Iran. Iran has been, now again there's a war going on in Iran. They're going to bomb the bridges one day, they are going to bomb the light post the other day, then I don't know, they'll bomb the trash cans the next day, and whether it will succeed. You all don't remember, but long before your time, we remember that they were going to bomb the hell out of North Vietnam. At the end of it, the Americans withdrew from North Vietnam. North Vietnam took over South Vietnam and made it the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. So if the bombing will work or not, I cannot say. But these are the experiences that we have. The Taliban was bombed by the Soviets, bombed by the Americans, Talibans are still there, whether you like them or not. So this is a part of the world we live in. Now, into this trade and all will develop. So it's a new relationship. How are you going to work it out, especially in Asia around the Taiwan issue? A lot of them have relied on America to do their foreign policy. They can't rely on America anymore. That I think is a fairly good description. Why should you rely on America? Work it out yourself. Americans also realize they have come to certain limits. So you can see a lot of changes are taking place in the State Department, for the better and for the worse both. What are the other developments we can look at? I would say two things. One of the biggest impacts is going to be climate change by 2050. Now in England, everyone thought they'll fix air conditioners to their houses. Now the municipal council has decided to tax the air conditioners. So how are you going to handle? What about water? Have you got enough water? Power. That's one. Second is the issue of AI and automation. One is automation. Other is AI. It's going to put certain people out of work. Other people will have work. But for instance, since I have been doing law, it looks like the AI is going to knock some of the lawyers out. Some of the accountants will get knocked out. Automation means the factories will be automated. Now China can afford to do that because their population will drop to about 800 million. So automation will help them. But the problem is when you put AI and automation together, finally the number of people you require will be less. Better paid, but a lower number. Then the beginning of our economic ideology and political ideology from the Industrial Revolution was this big division between capital and labor. Should the rewards be taken by those who have invested the capital, or should the reward go to the labor? So how you made those divisions was how the systems worked. But now what will happen is, it's definitely going to work in the advantage of capital. More capital, less labor. Then whole of what even Karl Marx says becomes rather irrelevant. What do? How do people live? They are now talking of basic national incomes, basic national capital. So those are some of the ones that we have to go into. And this background, look at Sri Lanka. We only focus on the present. We had a crisis. We should have managed the affairs better. We had the crisis, now we've resolved that crisis, we stabilized it. We basically, we stopped producing. So once law and order was restored and political order was restored and we got some funds in, the production started again. In 2022, rooms in this hotel were empty. But when there are law and order, rooms in this hotel became full. So everyone benefited except the fact that I was called a dictator. But now we have to repay our debt. How do we repay our debt? We got time. On 28 we start, and by 30 we are in full this thing of even going up to $5-6 billion. So how do we repay the debt? If this is our growth, then what do? Bulk of your money will go in for debt repayment. You can't be borrowing, or if you borrow to repay, your debt goes up. So that is the main issue that we have today, which people have missed out. If you have a debt, you must grow, and you must grow faster. The faster you go, the easier it is. Secondly, what is going to be our future? Our position, per capita income has been dropping. By 2050, Bangladesh may have a per capita income, our per capita may be the same as Bangladesh. But we are not expanding. Bangladesh was much poorer than us in 1977. Their GDP is high. Vietnam was much poorer than us after the war was over. Their GDP is high. They go up to 2 trillion by 2050. We are not getting anywhere close to 2 trillion. How are we going to do it? So one is your future. What is the future we have in this country? How can you get a house? How can you get a car? How can you get a good job? How can you get schools for our children? That is what a government has to solve. But to do that, there has to be growth. There has to be growth. Then the next problem, by 2050, all are living. What about your children's education? What about your children finding a house? What are you going to do for that? So you have to keep growing. But then how do we fit into this new age of climate change, of AI? So that's one thing. Rest is in India and all, the population is still growing. So as the population gets older, the younger people is supported. Now today in Sri Lanka, in the last 2-3 years, our birth rate is dropping. So the older people are increasing. If you look at us, all those after us for the last 40-50 years, population has been expanding. But if you look at it, in 25 years' time, when you're about 50 or 60, you will find a smaller base. So you're asking them to support an older population. So this is how we have to look at our future. Immediately, how are we going to improve the economic situation? Can we improve the economic situation? And secondly, how is those changes to be done? I just described what the world is going to be, where we are going to be. I just mentioned about Thailand, Malaysia and all, because Bay of Bengal is going to be a very important part of the world. Addition to all these countries, now you have what is called the Chengdu-Chongqing corridor. That's a corridor from that which will lead straight through Myanmar for two ports in Myanmar. And they are now trying to link up with Bangladesh. So you can see new orders coming in. So we are going to be in an important position. How are we going to work our relationship out? I had worked out the vision statement with India to work alongside and the Colombo Security Conclave, which are necessary for the maritime security of our area, but that hasn't gone ahead. But you have to work something out with India. But at the end of the day, remember, it's not the IMF that saved us. What had to be done, had to be done. If we went with IMF, we got about $2 billion. If we didn't, we had to do it without anything. And we got that money only from April 2023. Why were we saved? India wrote a $4 billion check for us. World Bank, ADB gave us 600 million. Bangladesh gave us 100 million. And Samantha Power, the US aid, she didn't give that much, but she gave something useful. She gave $50 million in fertilizer at the time of the harvesting. That's how we came through. But we have to think seriously of how are we going to put this economy into order. So I don't want to take any more of your time. You will have your questions. So I thought I'll describe to you what I think of the world and I think where Sri Lanka should be going to. For you all to decide, it's your future.
So, QR එක ස්කෑන් කරන්න QR එක ස්කෑන් කරලා ස්කෑන් එකක් දාන්න ඕන මයිර් ඉන්න යා ලයිව් එකක් නේ යන්නේ
Our civilization. In our motherland began a new chapter. A journey filled with triumphs, challenges and transformation. Along that journey, legends were born. Icons emerged. Leaders rose to guide the nation through moments of hope and uncertainty.
In Parliament, we fight each other very strongly, but I hope very politely and with the highest traditions of parliamentary practice. Mr. Aluth and I agree is that when we leave Sri Lanka...
Led my party to victory in 1977. I received 51% of the votes, and I hope we will have the same luck in the...
Developing countries of its time. But through every the time has come to learn from experience. Sri Lanka's most experienced political leader, journey of wisdom, a conversation.
And I will be hosting along with Vinja. Later being here. Fortunately, tonight's guest has more than 4 decades of experience and also navigating the most defining moments in modern Sri Lankan history. A slightly more different question, what happened?
Trial is about a new initiative, the first of many.
Of this new initiative, I would like to invite The chairman of the National Union, please welcome Pathadi Gunaratna onto the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's truly one who applied and who is selected and who are here with welcome everyone. So we have been waiting for this day, initially planning to have the first initial program of this pre running program back in March. During March and that time period, after the postponement was announced, almost everyone. So you waited patiently because you program and there's something made for you. So personally, I am feeling that an opportunity to go through. Firstly, I have to mention that this is not going to be a political gathering or a political campaign. I have to say that. Creating a space where young people can learn from experience. Today, Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe has been one of the most experienced leaders in Sri Lanka. Many of his ideas, many of his policies and many of the decisions were misunderstood by a large section of the economic situation. He introduced reforms aimed at strengthening the economy. And more recently, in 2022 and 2023, he took responsibility and worked towards stability in the country. Understanding the thinking behind decisions, understanding that there's a growing group of young citizens, including millennials, Gen Z, and even Gen Alpha. We understand young people today do not just want to ask and learn. So, and today is only the beginning. So we are planning to take this initiative across Sri Lanka. So bringing these conversations closer to young people from different communities and backgrounds. So the beginning of many stories that are yet to be written. So thank you for being part of this program. You hearing your thoughts and learning from you as much as you learn from us today. So thank you, and once again. Thank you.
Aluth Thorathuru. Breaking news alert.